Hi everyone. Recently, I came across a confusing problem while I was trying to unit test some functions in an Android app that were dealing with JSON. The problem was, even though the functions worked fine in the app's source module, the unit tests I wrote for those functions were returning incorrect results. This had me stumped for a while, but I ultimately found the cause and the solution. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. I'm going to create a sample Android project from scratch and go through everything, first demonstrating the issue and then the solution. So to get started, I'm going to create a fresh Android project. This is going to be a no activity since we are not going to be dealing with any UIs. Let's just give it a second until the Gradle build finishes. Okay, so here first let's imagine I'm going to have a class called validator. Within that class I'm going to have a simple method that validates a string. In other words, if I pass a string into that method, it checks whether this string is a valid JSON string or not. So in the main module, I'm going to create a Kotlin class. By the way, this quote-unquote problem exists in both Java and Kotlin, but I'm going to be demonstrating this in Kotlin. I'm going to name this class validator. I'm going to copy and paste the code just so I won't bore you with showing the typing. I'm going to import the library. This JSON library comes already built in with the Android SDK. Remember that part because that's going to come back again at the end of this video. That plays a role. So I'll go through this simple method. Like I mentioned earlier, if I pass a string, it first checks whether this is a JSON object. If that fails, then it rechecks whether it is at least a JSON array. If not, if it returns false, otherwise it returns true. So it's a very simple method. Now I'm going to create a unit test to validate this function. So it's pretty easy to create a unit test class here. But first let me go to the build Gradle file and point your attention here. So see, Android projects by default comes with the JUnit testing library. Currently it comes with JUnit 4, but in this example I'm going to be using JUnit 5. It won't matter for this problem I'm going to demonstrate, but since JUnit 5 is the latest one, I'm going to be using that. So I can go to the Maven Central repository and select the latest JUnit 5 from here. The JUnit 5 is called JUnit Jupyter, so from here I can just simply copy and paste it here, but there's a easier way of doing that. Let me show you. So back again in the validator class, hover over the class name which will show up this pop-up, and from here select the more actions and create test, which will show this pop-up. From here you can select the testing library. Like I mentioned before, I am going to be using JUnit 5. Look here, it says JUnit 5 library not found in the module. So there's a fix button. I'm going to be adding that. Click OK and OK from here as well. Okay, so back again in the build Gradle file, it did indeed add the new JUnit Jupyter uh, uh, definition, but you can see there's no version number. How do you fix that? Because of that, this also shows an error, unresolved reference. So how I'm going to fix this issue is go to File, Project Structure. From here select Dependencies. Next select App. From here you can see all the dependencies that you can see in the Gradle file as well. First off, I'm just going to delete this JUnit 4, which we won't be using. We can see the JUnit Jupyter, which is the latest version we are going to use. From here, I'm going to select the version number as 5 and apply and click OK. Alright, now the error went away. So now we can go ahead and write the unit test. So how you do that is expand the test module. I'm going to delete this example unit test file. We already created the validator test class. In here I'm going to add this unit test method. Again, I'm going to import these definitions. So this is a very simple unit test method. What it basically does is it instantiates an instance of the validator class, and I'm passing an obviously wrong string. This is not a valid JSON string, it's just a normal string. So I'm passing that into the validator's eString valid JSON method, and I'm asserting it as false. So this should be returning false simply because this is an invalid string. Let's see. So essentially the test should pass by returning the false value. Let's see if that's what's going to happen. From here I'm going to select run validator test with coverage. Give it a second. So we are getting weird error. Test events were not received. This is not the problem that I initially mentioned. This is just a minor hurdle in the way, but I'm going to show you how to fix this as well. Go back to the build Gradle file and add this code section to resolve this error. This tells Android that we will be using the JUnit platform to run tests. Add this code and sync the Gradle file. It's successful. Let's come back to the test file and rerun the test. Okay, as you can see, the test is failing, but the method should return false. Instead it is returning true. So as you can see here, expected is false, actual is true. According to our logic here, that cannot possibly be true. So what's the deal here? This is that weird error I mentioned at the start of the video. So after much digging around, I came across this documentation. I'll put the links in the description. This is the Android Studio unit testing support documentation. If you scroll down here to this method not mocked section, it says the Android jar file that is not used to run unit tests does not contain any actual code. Instead, all methods throw exceptions by default. What this basically means is even though the JSON library comes with bundled with the Android SDK, it is not supported in the test module to run unit tests. So it's basically like a empty object. It's returning exceptions. It doesn't contain any actual code, as you can see here. So how do you fix this issue? So in the documentation it says to add this block in the Gradle file, but in my experience when I tried this, it did not work. So I'm going to show how to fix that. Basically what you do is, even though you have the JSON library already integrated with Android SDK, you are going to have to add it to the test module manually. So what you do is go to the Maven repository again. This is that JSON library, JSON. This is that library. From here you are going to have to copy the definition and add it to the build Gradle file. Notice that I am adding the test implementation, which basically means this library will only be available in the testing module. Why am I not adding the implementation? So let's just try it out as well. And it's throwing an error. It says JSON defines classes that conflict with classes now provided by Android. This is again because this library already exists in the Android SDK. So adding it again conflicts with those existing files. That's why you cannot add it. I'm going to revert back to the test implementation and sync it. Okay, the error is now gone. Now if I come back here and run the test indeed pass. So that's basically the issue that I came across. That's how you write a unit test for functions that work with JSON in Android, simply because the JSON library that come with the Android SDK does not work within the testing module. That's it. Thanks guys. I hope it helps someone. I'll catch you guys later. Take care.